Hey gang, Uncle Todd and Sonny here, and we are looking at the series finale of Stranger Things. A lot of stuff happened. It was a double long episode. Understand some of the disappointments some people have been mentioning, but we'll get to that. We open with the soldiers dealing with the break in and subsequent enter of the Upside Down by our heroes. And Dr. K, doing some investigation, realizes the reason the gates opened on their own was because of some hacking. And she's got a pretty good idea where that could have happened. And they start doing a search around the area. And of course, come upon the church where Erica and Mr. Clark were operating things. And she also spots the van they were using, which is the radio station's van. WSQK. Squawk. Anyway. Let me see what I got here. Oh, yes. In the Upside Down, Murray, Hop, Callie, and Elle are dropped off at the lab. And they are spotted by the lieutenant. And he gets his men together. He's going to go capture Elle. Of course, they're kind of great distance away, so we'll get to that. Now, let's see. Meanwhile, the rest of the group gets to the radio station Upside Down, and they start their climb to the top. It's a 500-foot tower, so it's going to take a while. Elle gets into the tank where she bonds with Callie and Max. They pull Max into Elle's mind with them. Very important reason why. Once they cross over into Henry's mind, they're going to need Max as a guide to get them to where the kids are. Okay. Now, Vicky spots the soldiers arriving at the station, so she hides Max and herself in a hidden area. Okay, and yes, the abyss is, of course, as we saw from last week, it is starting to come down into the Upside Down. When it makes contact, it will connect with our world. And, well, all heck will break loose. And, but luckily, Max is able to lead them through several memories, and they're able to get to the house. Now, unfortunately, the tower didn't, the antenna on top of the tower does not line up with the rift. So it's going to hit and probably knock the tower down. So Elle's got to work fast. The antenna does strike the abyss, shaking everything. Steve falls off the platform, but Jonathan saves him. This is important because later on they will come to terms with their animosity to each other. And Steve will learn that Jonathan and Nancy are not going to be an item anymore. And he himself admits it was never going to happen with him and Nancy, and they're all, of course, going to be friends. But that happens later. Let's see. Elle attacks Henry and knocks him out, which does break the connection with the kids and stops the abyss from coming down. So now the rest of the group can climb up into the abyss, where will be able to lead them to Vecna's lair. Now, the kids think Elle has attacked Henry and is going to kill them all, but Max says they will show them the truth. When Henry wakes up and gets back into the house, they're all gone except for Elle, who he captures, and he starts changing into Vecna. Well, Callie had set up a invisible wall so that he couldn't see them, and they see Henry change, realize he's right, and they all get out. Elle was faking. She knocks Henry away again, and all the kids start running towards the cave. Now, when Callie tries to kill Henry, he disappears. He went back into the upside down abyss area, so he's there. But he can come back into his mind at any time. So they got to hurry to get to the cave. Let's see now. Will is able to find the lair, but while he's doing that, Vecna enters Hop's mind, shows him what Callie and Elle are actually planning to do, i.e., to stay in the Upside Down when it blows up, so that Kay will no longer be able to do her things, and the world will be safe, basically. And he shoots at Vecna, but he actually hits the tank Elle is in, so he's forced. At first it looks like he might have shot her, so he breaks the tank open and pulls her out, which drains the tank, pulling out her, Callie, and Max. Now the kids are on their own, but Holly takes charge and gets them all to the cave, including Derek, who, being a child of plus size, kept slowing down. And here, Henry approaches the cave, and he's forcing himself to get in, where he's getting back memories that he's been suppressing about basically his origin, and it's very painful, but he makes it through, and now he can go after the kids, who then run into the desert. Ollie's leading them to the mine shaft, because she knows if they can get into the mine shaft, they can get into the Upside Down, and let's see what's happening now. Okay. Now, Will, as sensing Henry, and he's made a connection. That's important for later. The kids are heading through the mine shaft. Holly finds the poker that she had dropped from earlier. And to give the kids time, she attacks Henry with the poker and gets in a couple good shots before he knocks her out, at which point he has come to his memory of his origin in the shaft and watches. As we saw before, he had been attacked by the scientist, and he had been forced to kill the scientist, and then opens the case. Now what the case contains is actually a rock from the abyss, a rock that is Vecna, and Henry absorbs it, and it becomes part of him. And Will, with his connection to all this, talks to Henry, lets him know he's not at fault for the things that happened. It was Vecna, not him. He can fight Vecna. And it looks like it might work, but then Henry tells him that no, he and Vecna are one. They are joined. He's not forced. Vecna showed him how horrible people are and how much they need to be replaced, and he agrees. Ugh. Terrible. Okay. Now, the soldiers have arrived at the lab, and they've turned on the hedgehog, which is in a helicopter. And Hop grabs grabs Elle, and he takes her off to hide somewhere. And she reminds him of Callie, so he goes back for her. Now Callie has been found, and Hop comes in, shoots those soldiers to save her, but the lieutenant and his men grab him and capture them both. Now, while this has been happening, Murray, who was on the roof and has seen all this and had warned them through the walkie-talkies, he's got some hand grenades and a detonator, to go along with all the bombs that they set up at the C4. So he straps them into a little device, swings it around his head, and whoo, at the helicopter, which explodes it, shutting off the hedgehog. Now, while this had been happening, the lieutenant was making a rather bad deal offer to Hop. If Hop doesn't tell him where Elle is, he will shoot Callie. Well, Callie's willing to die, so yeah, he shoots Callie. But just as he's shooting her, the helicopter exploded. And by the time they recover, Elle has arrived, killed all his soldiers, and then forces the lieutenant to put his gun here and set it off because she's upset. And Hop goes to get a first aid kit, and Callie tells Elle, it's okay. I always knew my story would end here. But it's okay. And when Hop gets back, Elle was over her crying, Callie's dead. So they got to get to Murray, and at this point, Elle spots all the floating rock debris and realizes she can use those rocks to basically hop up into the abyss. She and Hop have an argument because he knows what their original plan was. That wasn't the plan that everybody else had thought it would be. And he and Elle have heart to heart. She gives him his bracelet, telling him, you were a good father to me, but I am not the daughter you lost. I'm now an adult, and I have to make my own decisions, and I need you to be okay with that. Well, in the abyss, Will has led them to the lair, but he's connecting to Vecna, and so they go to approach the lair while he tries to keep Vecna busy, and the lair is a giant spider that uncoils itself and steps up and starts chasing them. At which point Elle shows up and gives it a few whaps with her mind, and then she leaps up and enters the lair. Not through the mouth, which the spider would, but through the openings that are in the lair. And she and Vecna are going to confront each other. Now, while they're fighting, the others realize they're going to have to also fight the spider. So Nancy, using herself as bait, the others get in position around the cliff tops. They all have weapons. And Nancy leads the giant spider into this cavern that it can't get all the way into, kind of getting it trapped, and then the others start fighting it, and they set it on fire, and they're stabbing it and throwing hand grenades at it, and shooting it with flare guns and all kinds of stuff. And Elle manages to push Vecna onto jutting stalagmites. Well, it's sideways, so well, anyway, onto that. But he reaches out to grab her to pull her in too, but Will stops him, and the spider dies, and Vecna dies, and everybody rushes in, and they find the kids, and they free them. Which at this point we realize Vecna isn't quite dead. But Joyce takes out her axe, and for all the things he's put everyone through, and says, "You effed with the wrong family," and beheads him. He is now gone. And so they're all heading back out of the abyss, back to reconnoiter with Murray and Hop, and they're all going home, Elle included. At which point, once they pass out, spike strips have been set up in their vehicles, pop their tires and wreck, and the soldiers go out and grab everyone. And Kay is looking around. Earlier she had found Max and Vicky, so they're all prisoners at this point. Only Elle's not there. Where is she? She's in the opening to the Upside Down. Now they've got the hedgehogs running, but the bomb was set to go off once the song "When Doves Cry" ends. Elle pulls Mike into her mind so they can say goodbye. And she explains it's the only way. We'd never be free. And then she pushes him back out. Bomb goes off. And as this is much greater than the shotgun that blast that they had started a decompression with, this ends it all. Everything is sucked back into the abyss, and the rifts are closed permanently. There are no rifts. And Elle was sucked in with them. We then cut to 18 months later. The army's long gone. No point. With Elle gone, there is no trace left of the blood, or they can't recreate the original experiments. So the army left to go do some other kind of crappy experimenting on people for super soldier weapons. Town's been pretty much completely rebuilt. Robin is still working at the radio station, and she's being allowed to be on air occasionally. But Steve's not with her at this point. And everybody is graduating. All our heroes are graduating. And guess who's valedictorian? Dustin. Now, Max and Lucas are still pretty much an item. And Mike, unfortunately, is still in mourning. And he's just blaming himself that he could have done something. But Hop has a talk with him. And we get into his whole thing with his daughter dying and how he went down that path that Mike is on. But that path just leads to more misery. And Elle wouldn't want that for him. His best thing he can do for Elle is to live a life, which is what he had come to understand after all they've been through. Well, Mike goes through the graduation. Dustin is giving his valedictorian speech, which kind of starts a little shaky, but as it goes along, it seems very uplifting until you get to the end, and in memory of Eddie Munson, Dustin tells off the school, rips off his graduation robe, showing his new Hellfire Club shirt, and flips off the principal. What's he going to do? Expel him? He's already graduated. Grabs his diploma and leaves. Gets congratulated by everybody. Even his mom was impressed. She's a rebel. uh, Now, the four older kids, Steve, Robin, Nancy, and Jonathan, they all meet for beers on top of the radio station, where we learn that Steve is the baseball coach. Derek's on his team, and also a sex ed teacher at Hawkins. Nancy was at Emerson University, but she's quit to go work for the Herald. And Jonathan is at NYU in film school and is making a film that's an allegory for capitalism about a woman that lures men into a boiler room and kills and eats them. Okay. And they all decide that not everybody likes being in Hawkins. So they've decided that once a month they will all meet in Philadelphia. Robin has an uncle there. They can all meet there and stay. And it's halfway between New York and Hawkins and where Nancy is. Of course, Robin's there because she's in love with Vicky, who is a nurse at the hospital. So, of course, she's staying and she's working at the station. Now, as for there's the Scooby Gang. Well, they were invited to some parties, but Mike has a better idea. And they, along with Max, have one last major D&D game. And at this point, when that finishes and they've defeated the last creature with the help of a mage, we can all guess who the mage was in their minds, we learn that later down the line, Mike will become a writer. Lucas and Max will continue with their romance, perhaps get married. Dustin is going to be great at college, and he'll occasionally go off on the weekends with Steve for adventures. And Jonathan, who I believe will be in Milwaukee, will come to terms with his alternative lifestyle, meet acceptance, and maybe even a love of his own. And it is here that Mike tells them of a theory he actually realized during the graduation when the speaker system started getting feedback. And the hedgehog was on. Elle could not have done anything. So how was she able to slip away from the soldiers and get into the Upside Down? How was she able to pull Mike into her mind? What if, when Hopper came upon them, Callie was not dead? And what if she told Elle she did not have to die? Everyone just had to think she had. And when they came out of the Upside Down, Callie, before she died, cloaked Elle in invisibility so that she could escape and make it to one of the tunnels and get away. While Callie made an illusion of Elle in the opening, so that when the explosion took everything out, everyone would believe she had died. And what if she is somewhere, perhaps far, far away, where no one would know her? Visually, they show her finding the place with the 3 waterfalls that Mike always talked about them going to. Now, you have no proof of this. Mike will never say this to anyone but them. They can choose to believe or not believe. They all choose to believe. And then they put up their campaign books for the final time before leaving. And they go up to have food their mom's prepared, while Holly and all the kids that they saved run down to the basement. Holly is going to be the new DM, and they are all going to be the new gaming group. So that things change. You give up your childhood to move on, but there's always a childhood waiting to take up that activity and have fun and bond. Yeah, it's a nice ending. Like the first half, a lot of great action. Second half, which is basically just aftermath, and I'm a little iffy on it myself. Uh, I think it would have been worked better if Elle had done the sacrifice actually, but she may have. This may just be Mike's supposition, but allows things to end on a bit of an ambiguous note. But I guess it's okay. I've liked the series overall, and I disagree that the ending was weak. I think it was a pretty good ending. I think the aftermath was a little too long, but it was an epic, and much like Lord of the Rings, epics have long aftermaths and wrap-ups. So, say goodbye to another show. Well, hopefully, something else will get my attention. Unfortunately, it will not be Starfleet Academy, but I am looking forward to the fourth and I guess final season of Strange New Worlds. Looking forward to the puppet episode. But till then, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.